Yes, sir. Welcome
Wait,
to and
pause. I'm
welcome.
sorry. Wait. Hashi, you did the intro last time, Bobby.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, Hashim, this is your intro. You're right.
I just did the recording, so you can edit it later.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Welcome back to another episode of the HBCU, the podcast, the show, whatever you want it to be, with your host, Hashim the Dream. You already know what it is, and my co host.
Good rising, good people. Bobby K here.
Wally not well, y'all. Let's go.
Yes. So this is for a niche audience, but we're gonna, put some of y'all on game, and we're gonna talk about the conflict of being a black wrestling fan. So, just a quick backstory to give some context. I've been a wrestling fan. I started watching wrestling when I was young, very young, like 5, 6 years old. Obviously watching, WWF and everything like that, and hearing about like, other promotions that came beforehand, WCW, stuff like that, during the same time. And as I went along, as I got a little bit older, I started watching stuff outside of WWE, like TNA, and so on and so forth, on to now, watch AEW, stuff like that. And so I have always been someone that has had a emotional tie to wrestling in terms of its storytelling, its physical, athleticism, the lucha libre style, all that stuff that really draws us in from when we were children to even as adults. That being said, though, it is not easy being a wrestling fan, especially a black wrestling fan. And so I wanted to go through the different barometers of that. But beforehand, I wanted to ask: were you guys into wrestling growing up at all? I know you guys were like big anime, but like, did wrestling ever come to the forefront for you as like kids?
I would say I wasn't like a wrestling fan. I not to the extent that obviously you are and other people
Mhm.
are. Like I would watch WWE, Raw, Batista bombing people, Undertaker my favorite,
Mhm.
uh Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock during that era, but like after a while just stop watching.
Mm.
So,
That usually is like the case. People kind of like zone out of it if you only like watch it like casually or just kind of like here and there. And you just some people outgrow it, and that's understandable. Wale, I know you have recently got back into wrestling a little bit more. We went to a wrestling pay per view for AEW a couple months back actually. So yeah, what about you?
So for me, like you, I grew up. My earliest memory is probably WWF. So probably when I was like around between 5 and 7, and then like quickly like run over into that, it became WWE. Most of my WWF memories was from like the early games when they were still under that title. But then my recent memories like the rivalry with Stone Cold and The Rock and Triple H been his big prime and everything, and then transitioning into the Ruthless Aggression era. And that was predominantly me and my brother Nigel scene where when I met him and I found out he liked wrestling, that was another thing we vibed over. And we was playing a lot of the WWE games like SmackDown vs. Raw 05 to 08, and 08 being the last one we played. Um, and around, I'd say from 1999 all the way up to 2008 is when that was like the end point of my wrestling uh, track record. I was
Mhm.
watching it nearly every week I could. Not, it's not it. It's not doing what it's supposed to do. It's not hitting like it used to. So at some point, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna stop. I still
Mhm.
followed it here and there. So when I heard stuff like Undertaker's streak broken, that pissed me off. Still to this day.
I can say for certain back in 2014 when I was hearing about the Undertaker streak being broken by Brock Lesnar of all people, I was like, "What in the fuck is going on? What is happening?" But nonetheless, so I wanted to get into the conflict of being a wrestling fan, a black wrestling fan. So Hashim, you had something that you wanted to add while Wally was talking?
oh yeah, can you give me the abbreviations for like WW? You said
F and
F.
WWE.
I know WWE, but WWF.
So,
What?
okay, so for context for people who aren't wrestling fans or aren't familiar, so WWE obviously World Wrestling Entertainment. They previously was known as World Wrestling Federation. They had to change the name from WWF to WWE because I think it was a petting company that they went by the acronym and they won in lawsuit. TNA, Total Nonstop Action, AEW, the one that I watched over the last few years, All Elite Wrestling. So those are just some of the adjectives. So if you hear us saying those, you can look it up if you're not familiar. Now, going on to the confliction part. So there's several reasons why I say it's a conflict being a black wrestling fan. And the first one is the lack of representation in terms especially of black wrestlers who have been world champions. Let's go all the way back to like WWE, WWF. Like I could count on one hand how many like actual black world champions and black women's world champions have been in WWF for as long as they've been around for 40, 50 years or so. The only people who really have been prominent figures as black people in WWE throughout its history is like The Rock, Jacqueline, if you know Jacqueline, but even she wasn't always like, the most appreciated like woman. It was always like Trish Stratus or Lita, something like that. And, I always had an issue with that because, like, as someone who's young, you're trying to connect with these characters, and they have these gimmicks and these things that draw you in to want to watch on a weekly basis. But when you only seeing like, middle-aged white men and women on the screen all the time, and it's not a lot of diversity, especially people that look like us, it makes it a little bit hard to really like, I don't want to say connect to it, but really emotionally tie yourself to it as much as you could compared to like seeing a Bobby Lashley or a Kofi Kingston or in AEW like a Swerve,
Booker
him
T.
being like the first black
Booker T.
Booker T, right? Yeah. So seeing these type of figures being like prominent, those are the type of things that visually like has lacked a lot in like a large scope of wrestling history to me.
Point one, I'd say it's not so much as my confliction. I guess for me, it didn't hit because I had The Rock, and I'm a more of a quality over quantity kind of person. I get what you're saying, but he was like running shit along with the big dogs like Stone Cold and Triple H, all that, and little
Mhm.
mini feuds, and he was talking the best shit on the mic to the people, and it was like one of the things where it's like, yeah, when Rock's there, it's a marvel to behold. And for me in particular, like there must have been, I don't know what is, I guess because how Rock dressed outside of the wrestling ring, but like I'm not gonna hold you. Wrestling attire to me is kind of corny sometimes. For the most part, overall, like wrestlers who appeal to me when they dress up, I'd say Rey Mysterio, John Cena, Undertaker, who else? There's more
When you say wrestling gear is corny, are you talking about like when they're actually in the
in
ring
the rest. Yes,
performing?
in the ring performing. It's just an aesthetic to me that I don't know. Like
What you
sometimes I
the
can't.
tights, like
Yeah,
the
I
tights?
just can't vibe with the tights. Feel me? Sometimes there's other wrestlers where I don't. It doesn't hit. But there's times when like overall I'm like I feel like this is not this person. Like say Bobby Lashley. I think he could have
Battery
some better
low.
wrestling gear to really highlight his kind of technique or approach to wrestling. You feel me? Maybe I'm thinking as a black man. Maybe that's my confliction. Like I feel like the gear for black wrestlers can definitely be different. It doesn't have to be the same, if that makes
I
sense.
mean, I
I feel
mean,
like
the
the
thing
same
is like,
thing.
okay,
You know,
Hashim.
No, I feel like from the short amount of time, I really didn't take notice
Charging
of the
battery.
difference. Unless besides like a dude coming with jeans down to his ankles, like John Cena or an Undertaker, all dripped out.
Well,
Like
John Cena used to wear like jorts. He didn't really wear like jeans to.
that's why I said I meant short jorts down to his ankles. His jorts was
He did
early
big.
'90s type,
Yeah,
early
big. Yeah,
2000s.
you're past his knees. Yeah.
But I didn't really notice the difference between black wrestlers and the other type of wrestlers. Like Rey Mysterio and all of them have like actual costumes that go with their character,
Mask.
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
their
So
personality.
when the confliction like that comes into play, it's I guess for me it's even if there were black wrestlers around, like Booker T, for example, he did make a name for himself in his own unique way with his spinneronies and his athleticism. He brought something to me where I could separate that, or
It,
maybe subconsciously I expected more from them, if that
I
makes
think that
sense.
you need a better personality.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Like it
Well,
never stuck with you.
Mhm.
Yeah, go ahead.
that kind of ties into presentation, and that kind of ties into my second confliction, which is misrepresentation. And like you're saying, like even with the gear, right? Like I never had a problem with like them wearing like the tights or whatever, because I didn't. They're wearing stuff that is the most. They have to be flexible and comfortable when you're performing these type of things in a orchestrated type of contest or whatever. And
Mhm.
that's the best thing to wear, like boots for grip, tights because you want to be able to move around, do different moves, go off the ropes, those type of things. But I think the presentation of black characters is really what's most important, because when they have had the opportunities, whether it's uh formerly Sasha Banks, who goes by Mercedes Monet, or The Rock, like you said, like when they come out in their entrance, they're gravitating naturally because of whatever they're wearing, but also their style, their swagger.
Mhm.
And to not always be presented as stars or presented as such as black stars, because even with The Rock, right? He's he's known as black, obviously, like is undeniable that he's black, but it's kind of similar to Steph Curry and Hashim. Maybe you can understand this better too. Like Steph is black, yes, but he's not like purely identified as black as a star, as a superstar. He's just Steph. It's just Steph Curry. You know what I'm saying? Like The Rock is just The Rock. He's
I
not
think
like he's not a black superstar.
it's
He just is a superstar that happens to be black.
But
You
that's
get
I
what I'm
good
think it's
saying?
though. But
because
that's
they
but that's good though.
it excelled. They excelled to the point where it doesn't matter. Their race is not brought up into it. It's just like, oh, that's Steph. That's the Rock. Because
You,
somebody
Yeah.
go look at Steph and he's black, right?
yeah.
They go look
Yes.
at LeBron.
Yes.
He black.
But my problem is it's a double-edged sword, because yes, they were able to transcend themselves to the point where them being black didn't hinder their success or hinder their ability to have accomplishments or be presented as superstars, but also that kind of can throw a disconnect, because people are not identify like we have all have identifiers for ourselves. We are all three black heterosexual males.
Mhm.
Those are our identifiers. When you have success, those identifiers shouldn't be like displaced just because you are getting to a higher level. And I think that happens a lot for the few black stars in wrestling that actually get to like supersede what the glass ceiling is. They're not typically looked at, even a Roman Reigns, his cousin. They're not typically looked at as black stars. They're just stars, and their blackness kind of gets like, you know what I'm saying? And that kind of bothers me,
By
to be
whom though? Are you
honest.
talking about the stars themselves or the people? Because if I don't think the stars themselves do it, I think it's the people. And even then, to me, that's a good thing because it's like, oh, this person's not successful because they're black. No, they brought what they can to the table and blow a large portion of people out the water because of who they are. It's not just because of their
Yes,
skin color.
but if you have a Rock, if you have a Roman, if you have a Swerve, if you have any of these people,
Who?
we saw him at the pay-per-view. He was the world
Oh,
champion.
okay.
Yes. If you have any of the Kofi Kingston, all these type of names, if you have these people, let's say yourself, Wale, if you become a uber successful animated person, right?
Mhm.
Would you not want to be recognized as a black man first and foremost? Like you don't have that stripped away from you just because you're successful, or just because of, oh, you're larger than life figure. Like that's not a good thing, because what happens is anybody that comes after you that tries to have success in your field, because they do identify with their blackness, they're more likely to be suppressed. You know what I'm saying?
I, I'm kind of confused. I'm not saying you're wrong or whatever. I'm just kind of confused because I
Okay.
would see it as like if you have the actor like Denzel, he's
Okay.
a good actor.
Mm-hmm.
He's also black. He's a good black actor, but he's also a good actor as well. How is that like?
I feel like Denzel identifies with his blackness. Even
Oh, for
like if
sure.
you hear him in interviews or just the way
Yeah.
he presents himself within his roles, like he doesn't detach himself from his blackness, or his greatness doesn't detach it from that either. So
But
it's different.
I think what you're talking about is from the outside perspective.
Yes.
For the fans. So we'll see him, even like white people or people of different race would see him as, oh, he's a great actor. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not different race,
Nah,
but
everyone, yeah, it's universally,
you know,
yeah.
he's a good actor, right?
Denzel, yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I'm, I guess, pushing back on your statement. Not saying it's entirely wrong. I just see it as a different perspective when they get to that high of a level.
I'll put it like this. The main reason I say that is because anybody, and we're gonna keep using The Rock as an example since he's the most prominent example. Anybody that is a black figurehead in wrestling, male or female, that's come after, but specifically male, obviously, that's come after The Rock, if they don't have the same presentation or style of The Rock as black wrestlers, they automatically are mid carders, or they're not always classified as main eventers to the extent that he is. But then, if they do present themselves with his similar attributes, then they're just a Rock clone. So
Mhm.
you see how that's a problem.
Mhm. I see what you're
Yeah.
saying. Um.
I'm not distinctively blaming him or blaming any of the people I'm saying. I'm just saying like it's a cause and effect to these type of things, and this is what I mean by the lack of or the misrepresentation. Like the blackness within wrestling has not always been prominent in like how it's visually shown.
I think that's just a matter of The Rock has big shoes to fill in that sense, but at the same time, that person or upcoming wrestlers cannot hold them to that standard. They have to find their own way. So, for example, I'm noticing in WWE for women's wrestling, what's her name? Jade something.
Cargo,
Cargo.
Jade Cargo.
My God, Lord have mercy. That beautiful woman. Anyways, she has made a name for herself. I don't know how. I guess emphasizing her strength, her style, her demeanor, and how she like it's nothing like The Rock. Like how she doesn't. I haven't seen on the mic, but in her in wrestling,
She was in AEW previously. That's how she made a name for herself, and then she went to WWE last year.
yeah. And either way, like nothing about
Hmm.
her. I said, oh, she's a female Rock. No, she just did it her way. She stood up for her
Hmm.
strength, her physique, her confidence, and like a femme fatale in the ring. Like, oh, that she could be facing another female wrestler, and the difference is night and day between the attitudes. Like, Jay's a stone cold killer, like, but she'll kill you with a smile, versus the other
Hmm.
person who's I don't even know. It doesn't matter. Jay's has the all your eyes and attention. I can't even think of the other one right now. So I think the highlight is, and this goes for in general, you can use what came before you as a foundation, but you can't make it your path, your entire goal as well. Take what
Hmm.
worked, figure out how you can add your own flair to it, and create something new. Because I'll be honest, who was it? John Cena said it at some point when he was roasting somebody. What was his name? Oh my God, he was a
He
jackass.
mentions
He was
John Cena in a black wrestler's
no.
conversation.
You're about to understand why I said this because John Cena was
Uh,
roasting someone on the mic, saying, "Yo, you know what I see when I see you? I see a younger version of me. You're trying to be me, and that's bad." The
Oh,
audience sees
I
it.
know.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
You
I forget his
probably
name.
Austin Theory.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. And I'm like, yo,
I
he's
think
right
so. Yeah.
because I'm like, he looks like a fake ass. He's trying to act like a fake ass John Cena, but worse in the all
Hmm.
worst ways possible. He's just digging himself his own grave, and Cena was roasting him with truth on the mic. So if Rock comes back and someone who's black tries to act like him and not having that same pop off, it's like, yo, you embarrassing yourself. What are you doing? Everyone sees through you. The only problem is you don't see it.
you could follow somebody's template or use them as a prototype, but it has to be in a large year gap. Like you looking back years where like we're still fans, or Bobby and you are still fans of wrestling. So you know, like, all right, we seen John Cena. We know you are a knockoff of John Cena. What are you doing? But
Mhm.
for the newer generation, it's like, oh man, this guy's great. I don't know how it is for that guy, but it's like, oh man, this guy's great. To you, it's like, yo, that's John Cena's son or something. You feel me?
Yeah, it's yeah, it's generational.
Yeah.
It's generational for sure because like the newer black stars uh do have carved out their own kind of niche in terms of how they're presented, which I appreciate. But it's such a new thing seeing like black stars actually be considered main eventers outside of like a rock, or
But
you know what I'm saying, like this is what I'm saying. So this is very new.
I got a question for you guys. It's
Okay.
if that's a problem, right? Do you think
Hmm.
they are forced to act a certain way to get to that point that they're on TV or in the bigger wrestling names like
I
WWE
mean, of
or
course. I mean, like the reality is like any black person or any like person who's a minority, but especially us, like there is some semblance of conforming in order to get to a certain level. And that is where you kind of have to determine what you're willing to do and not to do. What goes against your integrity and character, not like character like gimmick, but like you as a person, like what you're okay with doing and what you're not okay. Like a Swerve Strickland, for example, like who I mentioned, right, who's a former world champion in AEW. Like he has a manager named Prince Nana that comes to the ring with him, and he wears a crown and he dances to the entrance music of Swerve, and that has been a big reason why he's become such a prominent figure in AEW because of his manager and him dancing and the crowd dancing with him. And the crowd is predominantly white crowd, which I'll get to in a second. The wrestling crowds typically are predominantly white. So you have a predominantly white crowd dancing to his manager while his interest is playing, and that has helped him elevate to a certain level. Now, an outsider could look at that and say, well, is that not shucking and jiving? Someone else can say, well, not necessarily. It's more so just like you're bringing like hip hop culture to wrestling, basically.
Hmm.
So I think it kind of just depends on the perspective. But just having the opportunity to do that, like, is important. But yeah, I think it is some level of like what you're willing to do.
you know. In that case, I don't think it's shucking and driving. I think it's more entertainment.
I
I
do
think
too.
if they were saying the immediate thought is Shiggy that comes to the head. If there's like, yo, do your dance,
Yes.
that's
Yes.
that's
Yes.
different. But
Yeah, that's disgusting.
I
But
think
okay.
I guess my contention with this new wave of black wrestlers though, predominantly male, like
Hmm.
like you said with what's his name, Swerve.
Swerve.
Yeah, there's
Hmm.
Swerve, and then there's the Uso brothers. One of them does the whole yeet shit and has the crowd
Hmm.
dancing and whatnot. I have to say, I kind of have a problem with that because
Oh,
it does
okay.
come off as cliche, like hip hop. Oh, let's get the people going and shit. Like, I don't know what it is about that because I think of again, what can I get from your personality? I don't get not much from your personality from that kind of same music video. Like Booker T's thing was it wasn't a hip hop dance video, but it was him come out, say his thing, and he did a spinneroni, that kind of shit. But he still had that wrestling persona, like he's that guy. He shows his athleticism, his attitude, all in one showing. These guys, if they, I'm not saying all of them do it, but so far, two people I listed, I guess it's not a bad thing, but I hope that portrayal for a black wrestler, it does not stick. It's not a template. Like every time a black wrestler comes out, it has to be a hit ass song that's getting the people dancing and everything. Like it's
Wale, you're
what?
being contradictory though,
Why? How?
because you are the same person that I've heard multiple times talk about how much you have an affinity for John Cena, who's a
Uh huh.
white wrestler,
Mhm.
one of the most popular wrestlers of all time.
Mhm.
And his main theme for the first several years of his career, even throughout most of his career,
What other
was him
wrestler?
rapping.
What other wrestler? No. Well, first off, the two
Doctor of
wrestlers. Hold on. No. No.
Thugonomics,
No. Pause.
and he's
Pause.
a white. Hold on. I said his name was Doctor of Thugonomics,
Uh
and
huh.
he is a white wrestler from Boston. I just put into
Uh
context
huh.
how that sounds compared to what you're saying you have a problem with the black wrestlers who actually are involved with the hip hop culture and black culture more so. But go ahead.
But John Cena grew up admiring rap. Like he says it in his biographies. But that's besides the point. Um, how many wrestlers have followed John Cena's example in that way? A white dude from Boston or some shit has some rapper persona. Can you name one? I don't. And if they did, guess what? You a fake ass John Cena. You better you better know how to fucking rap then or something. It better be authentic. It better not just be a phase to copy what came before you.
John Cena was not I watched that whole Dr. Thugnomics era. He wasn't a great rapper. It was just funny and entertaining.
Don't let Nigel hear you say that.
I watched it. I don't care. He wasn't a great rapper. It was funny and entertaining, and it was glaring to see someone of his status who was white
wait,
rapping
pause.
on wrestling TV.
Did I say he was a great rapper though? No, I'm saying if you're gonna try to copy that gimmick, you actually better be good at something. Like you better be like, oh wow, okay, this is a familiar gimmick, but this person who's not black has immersed themselves in rap. They know some shit.
But this is the confliction though. You have an issue. You're okay with John Cena doing it because it's classified as original because he's a white wrestler doing it. But then there's black wrestlers. Swerve, mind you, is actually a hip hop artist. So and his entrance is his own song. So it actually would make sense for him to come out with that as his theme. But you have an issue. You have an issue with them portraying themselves in that because it's stereotypical. But then a white wrestler is doing the stereotype, but you're okay with it because he's the original white wrestler to do it. You see how that's conflicting?
But here's the thing, though. You're conflicting yourself, too, because are we going to stick to, okay, a black wrestler, because they're black, now they have to come with some hip-hop music video or rap shit.
No.
All right, then. I'm saying that's what I fear, because we already have this stigma and gravitation. There's people who grew up black. They don't really fuck with rap music. They probably fuck with rap, rock, and all this stuff. They get scrutinized for it.
Okay.
Are we gonna have that same issue for wrestling? I hope not.
I'm saying there needs to be consistency in your approach. If if you're okay with John Cena having that portrayal as a white wrestler, then there shouldn't be as much of an issue with a black wrestler doing it. If you think it's an issue that a black wrestler is doing it because you classify it as stereotypical, then that John Cena gimmick,
not stereotypical, and as a black person too, your quality is shallow in that kind of genre music. I don't know. That's kind of disrespectful, and you shouldn't be doing it. Like I said, quality, not quantity. If every single black wrestler comes out with that kind of entrance, how shallow would that be? How corny would that be? If it's just this shit all the damn time, all the damn day, just for the same simple ass beat, you might
Hashin,
what?
Hashin, what do you think on this point that we're arguing?
I don't know, because you can't say if John Cena was really about that. That's his personality, but it was unique because nobody else was doing it. Now, if you put that for, say, a black person doing whatever or being in the rapping scene or anything else that John Cena was kind of biting from black people culture, then it's seen differently. I'm not sure how that makes sense.
You talking to me?
I'm talking to both of y'all. This is.
He's mentioning the part about John Cena and you thinking don't have a problem with John Cena doing it because he's a white rapper. Apparently.
You said you didn't. You said that was your favorite gimmick growing up. Did you not say that before?
It's off screen.
I did not say that.
Yes. So you didn't praise John. You didn't praise John Cena for that said gimmick.
I did, but at the same time.
Exactly.
At the same time, I would not want so many other damn wrestlers to copy that.
So your thing is based on originality and not who's doing it.
Duh. That's the whole point.
Okay.
What are you talking?
Okay. We're having two different arguments then, but I feel you though.
Okay.
I get what you're saying.
So let me phrase.
I get what you're saying. We're having two different arguments.
Let me phrase for the people then, just in case there are more Bobbies out there who scrutinize shit that I say. Originality, people. We want originality, and in especially the case of black wrestlers, let's truly be original, and not just stick to generic stereotypes too. Just especially because one person is popping off with it. and they make it work for them. Find your own way, please. Really
and
stand
and
out.
and white wrestlers, just because you have a friend that is black, or you listen to hip hop on your spare time, that does not mean that you should be having a gimmick that is predominantly based on that, and it doesn't fit with the rest of what your gimmick should be. That doesn't make sense to me at all. But nonetheless, another confliction I have